Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we plunge into sources, dig out those key insights, and basically hand them right over to you.
Yeah, we do the digging so you don't have to. We're aiming to cut through all the noise, get you properly informed, and maybe uncover some surprising things along the way.
Absolutely. Think of us as your guides. And today, wow, we're diving into a really foundational text. It was one that shaped how millions, literally millions, think about success. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm. And we've been looking specifically at excerpts from the original 1937 first edition. It's pretty fascinating to see these ideas right from the source.
It really is. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to explore the core principles Hill laid out for, cultivating that success mindset and achieving wealth.
And we really want to show you how incredibly relevant these principles still are, especially if you're out there trying to figure out, okay, what does it actually take to be successful now in today's world?
Right. Because Hill's claim was huge, wasn't it? He said these principles came from studying over 500 super successful people.
Yeah, people who often started with, well, nothing. Little education, no money, no connections. And his promise was, essentially, if they could use these ideas to achieve massive success, then so can you.
Okay, so where do we start? Where does Hill say this whole journey begins? It's not like writing a business plan first, is it?
No, not at all. The absolute starting point, the bedrock for everything else,
Yeah.
it's all in the mind.
In your thinking.
Exactly. Hill's core idea is, honestly, pretty radical in its simplicity. Success starts with how you think. He talks about actively cultivating what he calls success consciousness.
Which implies the opposite is also true, right? You can drift into failure consciousness.
Precisely. He's really strong on this point. Success seems to gravitate towards people who deliberately become success conscious. And failure, well, that tends to happen to those who just sort of allow themselves to become failure conscious. It's about the thoughts you let dominate your mind.
He has that story, doesn't he? The one about the dictionary. Really hammers this home.
Oh yeah, it's a great visual. Years before the book, he apparently bought a dictionary, found the word impossible, and just physically cut it out.
Wow.
And he actually suggests, doing something similar would not be an unwise thing for you to do.
That's quite a statement. It really shows how he viewed limiting beliefs. Not just as a small hurdle, but as a major weakness. This familiarity we all have with impossible.
We often know all the reasons something won't work before we even think about how it could. Hill saw those limiting beliefs as a fundamental barrier.
And he makes the link super direct, doesn't he, between thoughts and, well, reality.
Incredibly direct. He states flat out that your habitual thoughts determine your destiny, financially and personally. He says, quite bluntly, both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought.
Powerful stuff. What you focus on, what you hold in your mind consistently tends to show up in your life.
Right. So step one is understanding this power and starting to manage your mindset, consciously shifting towards success.
Okay, mindset first. But what actually sparks the action? What gets things moving towards those goals, those riches he talks about?
Desire.
Yeah.
That's the next big piece.
Yeah.
But not just, a casual wish.
No, it has to be more than that.
Absolutely. Hills calls it the absolute starting point for all achievement. It has to be this intense, burning desire.
He uses that phrase, white heat of desire, for a definite goal.
Exactly. Intense, specific, unwavering. He points out that, every great leader was a dreamer. Big things start as these vivid, burning desires inside someone's head.
Okay, so a definite goal powered by intense desire. But desire on its own isn't enough, is it? You need to actually believe it's possible.
And that's where faith comes in. Step two, really. Desire needs to be mixed with faith. It's the absolute belief, the conviction that you will attain that definite goal.
He calls faith the head chemist of the mind, right? What does that mean?
It's like faith is the catalyst. When you blend faith with your thoughts, your desire, the subconscious mind somehow picks up on that vibration. It translates it into what he calls its spiritual equivalent and then transmits it to infinite intelligence.
Okay, terms like infinite intelligence, spiritual equivalent, vibrations. That might sound a bit out there for some listeners today. How did Hill suggest we actually do this? How do we blend desire and faith?
Right, this leads to the third principle, autosuggestion. This is the practical tool. It means self-suggestion, deliberately feeding your dominant thoughts, your desires, your beliefs into your subconscious mind.
So you're kind of programming your subconscious.
Pretty much. It's the way you communicate your definite purpose and your absolute belief in achieving it to that deeper part of your mind. You do it through repetition, affirmation, and crucially, emotion.
Emotion is key.
Very key. He strongly advises writing down your definite goal, your financial target, whatever it is, and reading it aloud twice a day. But not just reading it, feeling it. Putting real emotion, especially faith, into it. Believing it like a child believes, he says.
And he had this theory about the brain underpinning this, didn't he? Sort of like a radio?
He did. Based on the science of his time, he suggested the brain works like a broadcasting and receiving station for thought vibrations. These vibrations travel through what he called the ether.
A mental radio, essentially.
Kind of, yeah.
Right.
He saw the creative imagination as the receiving set. And the interesting part is he thought strong emotions like intense desire or even transmuted sexual energy, which is a whole other chapter, could step up or amplify these thought vibrations.
Makes them stronger.
Exactly. Strong enough to be picked up by the creative imagination, either from another person's brain or from what he termed infinite intelligence. That could be, universal knowledge, the collective unconscious, maybe just the source of creative sparks and hunches.
So when he talks about the subconscious translating thoughts into their spiritual equivalent before transmitting them, he's talking about this process. Emotionally charging a thought so it becomes a powerful enough vibration to connect.
That seems to be the idea, yeah. You define your desire, fuel it with faith, use autosuggestion with feeling to impress it on the subconscious, and this, according to his model, creates powerful thought vibrations that can tap into a wider source of ideas or wisdom.
Okay, so that's the internal engine. Desire, faith, autosuggestion. But you can't just sit and think, right?
Absolutely not. That internal fire has to translate into real-world action.
Which brings us to planning and persistence.
The vital link between mind and manifestation. Hill insists that desire and faith, however strong, need sound, practical, and workable plans. You need a strategy.
Even a genius needs a plan.
Right. No plan, no great wealth accumulation, he argues. And this is where, honestly, most people fall down.
The persistence part.
Exactly. It's a huge point in the book. Most people face a temporary setback, their first plan fails, and they just quit.
Yeah.
They give up on the goal, not just the plan.
Instead of just making a new plan.
Right. He uses those iconic examples. Thomas Edison, obviously.
A light bulb guy.
Yeah. Hill says Edison failed 10,000 times before he perfected the incandescent electric light bulb. 10,000 times.
That's incredible persistence.
It shows it wasn't failure of the goal, it was temporary defeat of a specific plan.
And Henry Ford, too.
Ford's success, Hill says, wasn't necessarily down to having a superior mind, but because he adopted and followed a plan which proved to be sound. The big takeaway here for anyone facing obstacles is temporary defeat just means something's wrong with your plan.
Not with you, not with the goal, just the plan.
Yes, the plan, or make a new one. That requires real persistence.
Which he defines as, what was it? Sustained effort necessary to induce faith.
That's it. He calls it the carbon to steel for character. It's what makes you resilient.
Are there signs if you're lacking it? Red flags.
Oh yeah, he lists symptoms, things we all probably recognize, right?
Yeah.
Not deciding exactly what you want. Procrastination. Indecision. Blaming others. Not bothering to learn what you need to know. Being too easily satisfied. Indifference. And underlying it all often is just a weakness of desire. Persistence means fighting these tendencies.
Okay, so you need the inner drive desire, faith, autosuggestion, and the outer action planning, persistence. But for really big achievements, great fortunes, Hill says you usually can't do it alone.
No. That brings us to the mastermind principle.
The mastermind. What is that exactly?
He defines it as the coordination of knowledge and effort between people in a spirit of harmony for a definite purpose. Basically, teamwork at a high level.
Why is that so crucial for big success?
Because, Hill argues, no single person has enough experience, education, natural talent, or knowledge to build something truly massive on their own. You need cooperation.
Yep.
You need to create this alliance of minds, all focused harmoniously on the same goal. Big success is a team sport.
His big example here is the formation of U.S. Steel, right?
It's a fantastic story, he tells. The whole thing started as just an idea in Charles M. Schwab's head. Schwab had the desire, the faith. Then he made a practical plan consolidating the steel industry. And then, crucially, he presented it with incredible passion and persistence.
That famous speech to J.P. Morgan.
Exactly. A 90-minute pitch at a dinner. Morgan had heard ideas before, but Schwab's plan, his vision, backed by that persistence, it was different. Hill highlights how the value of the properties involved shot up massively, like $600 million in profit, just by bringing them together under this single, powerful idea and management plan.
From an intangible idea to a corporate giant, through collective belief and effort.
A perfect mastermind illustration. He also uses the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Interesting example.
Yeah, their definite decision to sign, knowing the risks.
Yeah.
They required a huge collective faith, courage, harmony, and persistence for a definite purpose. It shows the mastermind isn't just for business.
That really resonates today, doesn't it? The need for collaboration, for finding the right people to work with, whatever your goal is. Okay, shifting gears slightly, Hill also talks about leadership.
Vital, whether you're leading a huge company or just leading yourself. He makes a key distinction between leadership by consent, which lasts, and leadership by force, which eventually fails.
And leadership by consent relies on certain qualities.
He lists 11 factors. Things like self-control, a strong sense of justice, being decisive, having clear plans, being willing to do more than you're paid for.
That one stands out.
Yeah. Also having a pleasing personality, sympathy, understanding, willingness to take responsibility even for your team's mistakes, cooperation, and attention to detail.
Taking responsibility for others' mistakes. That feels very relevant for building trust in modern teams.
Definitely. It's about integrity, leading by example. Hill saw this as vital for what he called a new era of business, based on cooperation, not just orders. He even connects this to how you market yourself.
Ah, the QQS formula.
Right. Quality of service, quantity of service, and the spirit of cooperation you provide it with. He suggests you should prepare a detailed brief for your own services, like a lawyer arguing a case.
Sell yourself effectively.
Exactly. Present yourself as a strategic asset, showing a plan for how you will contribute, not just listing skills. He tells a story about a woman who helped people write these briefs, leading to huge income increases because they clearly articulated their value proposition.
Okay, so we have mindset, desire, faith, auto-suggestion, planning, persistence, the mastermind, leadership, anything else for that extra edge.
2 more key principles: imagination and the sixth sense. Imagination, especially creative imagination, is where all ideas, all fortunes are born. Think of Woolworth's 5 and 10 cent store idea. Simple, powerful, born in the imagination.
And the sixth sense, that one always sounds a bit mystical.
It's the 13th and final principle. Hill calls it the door to the temple of wisdom. He connects it to communication with infinite intelligence, receiving those hunches, inspirations, flashes of insight that seem to come out of the blue.
How do you get that?
Well, according to Hill, you can't really understand or use it until you've mastered the other 12 principles. He thought it often developed later in life, maybe after 40 or 50, as your spiritual forces mature.
So it's like a culmination.
Sort of. He pointed to research from his era, like Dr. Ryan's work on telepathy at Duke, as possible evidence that the brain could receive information beyond the normal senses. It links back to his brain as a receiver idea, tapping into that infinite intelligence. He presents it as a potential ability you develop.
Okay, let's pull all this together. We're talking about a book from 1937. How does this directly apply to someone trying to build wealth or achieve success right now?
I think the core message is incredibly relevant. Hill's most fundamental point is that the only thing you have absolute control over is your own thoughts. And mastering your thinking is the starting point and the ongoing work for shaping everything else.
Your environment, your destiny.
Exactly. And protecting that mindset is critical.
You mentioned negative influences earlier.
Yeah, he calls susceptibility to negative influences a 7th basic evil. You have to actively shield your mind from the doubts, the fears, the poverty consciousness of others. Think of Ford again facing down skeptics, trusting his own vision. You need to protect your definite purpose from negativity.
So for you listening today, wondering what it takes.
Based on Hill's framework, it's surprisingly consistent, isn't it? First, decide exactly what you want. Fuel that with a burning desire and unwavering faith. Use auto-suggestion to embed that in your subconscious.
Then act.
Right. Create practical plans. Pursue them with relentless persistence. See setbacks as feedback, not failure. Build your mastermind, your support network. Develop leadership qualities, starting with yourself.
Market your value effectively.
Using that QQS formula.
Yeah.
And stay open to intuition. Those insights from your sixth sense once you've done the work on the other principles.
It really is a whole system, focusing on inner mastery, driving outer action, all centered on a clear goal.
Yeah, it shifts the focus from external limits to internal power. The responsibility and the potential rest squarely with you.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Think and Grow Rich, it's striking how these principles from nearly 90 years ago, mindset, desire, faith, planning, persistence, collaboration, still feel so fundamental, don't they?
Absolutely. The world's changed, technology's changed, but the core human elements of achieving big goals. Hill seems to have tapped into something truly timeless. The value today is that clear path from wanting to achieving.
Which leaves us with that final powerful thought from Hill himself, something for you to really mull over.
There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. Both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought.
Just consider that for a moment. The power you hold in your own thinking. What could that unlock for you?